Welcome in everyone, this is Sean with MTG808 Jr. and today we're going to be taking a look at the top 4 deck lists from today's Youth Standard Pauper Tournament. That's October 21st, 2018. We were over at Westside Comics and Games and we had a turnout of 12 kids. So we have our top 4 deck lists after 4 rounds of Swiss. Before we jump into looking at those deck lists though, I just want to make sure everyone knows about our upcoming tournament schedule. We have finalized all the tournaments that will be taking place between now and our scholarship tournament, which of course is December 1st, over at Dirtle Zone in IAEA. We will be giving away $500 in scholarship to first place and $250 in scholarship to second place. So if you want to do well at that tournament, best way to do it is to practice, research. You're in the right place to do your research, checking out the popular decks in the metagame, and then of course getting your reps in, getting your practice in, getting real comfortable with your deck and fine-tuning it. So the next tournament we'll be having will be November 4th, Youth Standard Pauper over at the Planet. Then the next one is November 11th, Youth Standard Pauper over at Westside Comics and Games. Both of those are on Sundays. And then November 17th, we have Youth Standard Pauper over at Minikyu in Mililani. November 24th, Youth Standard Pauper over at the Planet, and then the weekend after that is our December 1st championship tournament. So that's 4 straight weeks of Youth Standard Pauper tournaments. If you want to maximize your chances of doing well in that scholarship tournament, you definitely want to get your reps in, get your practice in, get real comfortable with your deck, and put in the work. We've been seeing the kids that have been putting in the work doing consistently well in our smaller scale tournaments, so we hope to see the competition starting to increase, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how that tournament shakes out. Alright, so today's tournament we had a turnout of 12 over at Westside Comics and Games, and after 4 rounds of Swiss, our top 4 consisted of Eddie playing Mono Red Aggro. We had Jansen playing Mono Black Death Touch, Jeffrey playing Blue Red Spellbarf, and Austin playing Black White Vampires. So congratulations to our top 4, and of course everyone who came out to participate. And we will be taking a look at our top 4 deck lists here. Of course, there will be links in the description for all of these text versions of the decks. And then, of course, I will be updating the end boss deck that I used. I got to try it out today. It felt real good, and I'll be making some suggested updates to the blue-black Surveil deck that I used to end boss the tournament. All right, so Eddie right here took down the tournament, coming in first. Close this. We're not starting with that. So Eddie, this was his 3rd straight top 4 in a row, so congratulations to him. We looked at his deck last week, so I'm not going to spend too much time looking at it, but basically, if you watched our video recap of the last Youth Standard Pauper Tournament, we saw all these aggro decks with really good curves, and a bunch of pump spells and removal spells to kind of like back up their early game curve. So he pretty much kept the deck the same. The big changes that he made is he cut 2 Fervent Strikes, and he added 2 Maximize Velocity to the main deck. And he said Maximize Velocity did really well for him today. Being able to turn lands in the late game into, a functional spell is really powerful. And, of course, being able to give something haste is real nice. So he really liked Maximize Velocity. He had 2 more in his board, and he was real happy with it. He was trying out Piston Fist Cyclops and his 3-drop slot. I asked him to keep track of how many times he wanted to attack with Piston Fist Cyclops, and he couldn't. I saw it come up at least once. I suggested to him that he play Wojek Bodyguard in that slot, and he said he'd need to think about it a little more, make some tweaks to the deck. But Wojek Bodyguard, 3 mana, 3/3 with Mentor, can't attack or block alone. So if you are going to play Wojek Bodyguard, then you probably want to play more haste creatures like Nest Robber. Goblin Instigator is good because it's hard for your opponents to kill both of the tokens to keep the bodyguard from attacking, but I do think that is a consideration if he wants to kind of diversify the 3-drop slot. But congratulations to Eddie for taking down the tournament. 1st place. Awesome job. 2nd place, we had Jeffrey playing Blue-Red Spellbarf. This is a new archetype that we have seen since the release of Guilds of Ravnica, and it's pretty sweet. So basically this deck is just trying to have one really big turn where you just play a ton of spells. And the centerpiece of the deck is We Dragnauts. It was printed as a common before in what set is that? Dissension, something like that, and Guild Pact. It was in Guild Pact. So it was a common before, and it is an uncommon this time. But it is legal in Standard Pauper as far as we're concerned, because it was printed as a common before. But it's a red, a blue, and a colorless for a 1/3 fairy wizard with flying. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, We Dragnauts gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So, Jeffrey played this guy. He played Aven Windmage, which is a 3-mana 2/2 flying bird wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And then Fire Urchin, 2-mana 1/3 with trample. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Fire Urchin gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So all these creatures reward you for playing instants and sorceries, and he's playing a ton of cheap instant and sorceries to kind of just like put together one really big turn to kind of kill the opponent in one hit. There were a bunch of games where Jeffrey just dealt like 18 to his opponent in one turn because he went like maximize altitude, jump start it, give 2 Fire Urchins both flying, right? And then that also pumps up We Dragnauts a bunch and then just fly over for a ton of damage. So that did happen a bunch, but he's got just 12 creatures in the deck, but it's 16 creatures in the deck, but they are all pretty solid. And then he has, the usual Shock, Lightning Strike, which can go to the face or clear up the board. Opt is going to be a spell, it's cheap, it'll trigger your creatures, and then it will hopefully draw you into more spells. Sonic Assault can tap down a blocker, deal damage to them, and it has Jumpstart, so, having one of these in your yard will help make sure that you have instants and sorceries to cast to keep these guys going. Unexplained Disappearance can get rid of a big creature, helps you Surveil. And, of course, Maximize Altitude was probably the all-star in this deck. So, Jeffrey, he lost to Mono Red in the finals, but he did do really well in the tournament leading up to that. He is playing kind of a high land count. I would maybe suggest cutting a couple lands. I'm not sure what I would add, though. Maximize Velocity might be a consideration, or perhaps he had Dive Down in his sideboard, but you might want 1 or 2 in the main deck. Other than that, I did see Jeffrey get mana or color screwed one time. That it happened in the finals. He would have won a game if he had one more blue source in order to cast Maximize Altitude twice. So maybe some number of Is at Guild Gates or what is it called, Highland Lake. I don't think the deck wants too many because it is sort of a tempo deck, but it's also kind of like a combo deck, right, where you're just trying to set up one big turn. So I think this deck could probably get away with playing 4 coming to play tapped lands. But this is a really solid archetype. I expect this archetype to kind of stick around for quite some time. And congratulations for Jeffrey for cooking up a sweet deck list. All right, that was second place. Going down to third place, we had Jansen. Jansen won the tournament the week prior. Let's see, I don't think he changed anything from his deck. Oh, I think the only change he made is he had 61 cards in his deck when he won, and then he added 2 more cards to his main deck without cutting anything. So he has a second Soul Salvage and a second Never Happened in the main deck. But, I'm not going to say too much here about this deck. I've already made suggestions on how I think it can improve. I did get to watch him play with Veiled Shade, and I was impressed by it. I'm not sure what the optimal 3-drop is. The deck might actually want to cut Pitiless Scorgon to play Whisper Agent here, and then some number of Veiled Shades. I do still think Moodmark Painter will be good in this deck, and Vicious Rumors, there were some spots where I saw it be really good for him, and then some spots where he cast it in and his opponent had no cards in their hand. And I still also think Skullduggery is better than Fungal Infection in this archetype. But, this congrats to Jansen. He cooked up a sweet deck list. It's pretty consistent. It's powerful, and took him to a second top 4 2 weeks in a row. So good job to Jansen. And then the last deck rounding out the top 8 was Austin's Black-White Vampires. So Austin told me that he was looking at the Black-White Vampires list that we have in the channel here, and didn't have all the cards that he needed for it, so he kind of filled in some of the the cards that he was missing with just cards that he had, and he made a good run of it. Basically, the premise of the vampire deck, you can check out our deck tech on it if you want a little more detail, but basically you're just trying to be a lifelink aggro deck. So there were a bunch of games where I saw him with Healer's Hawk, Bishop Soldier, Mark of the Vampire on something, and he was just being able to race his opponents by gaining a bunch of life while attacking them. I do think that this list is not very tuned, but it is more or less playing pretty much good cards. I think Queen's Bay Soldier is the only card that is like not Standard Pauper constructed worthy. Ritual of Rejuvenation, I think that Revitalize is just a better version of this card. So I would make that consideration. But I think that we don't see very many 3 or 4 ofs that in his list. Usually constructed decks want to maximize the best cards in certain slots. But Austin did really well playing this deck that was full of singletons, or 1 copy or 2 copies of pretty solid cards. He had a backbone, right? 4 Legion Conquistador, 4 Healer's Hawk, 4 Moment of Craving, and then just 1 or 2 of whatever other good cards that he had, and it worked out for him. So congrats to Austin for coming in 4th place, rounding out our top 4. And then last but not least, my update Surveil deck. So this is not the version that I played against Eddie in the end boss match, but it is the version that I would change after playing the 2 games against Eddie with it. So just some really small changes. Added the 4th Omen Speaker, cut a Dazzling Light. I cut the Unexplained Disappearance for Moment of Craving. Moment of Craving is just so good in Standard Pauper format. I think you just need to have it. And instant speed Surveil, it was kind of awkward because I wanted to trigger my Darkblade Agent, but then wanting to cast a bounce spell. There just weren't that many good openings for it, so I cut those. Added the 4th Watcher in the Mist to the deck. Watcher in the Mist was great. And then added a Queen's Agent to the main deck, just because Queen's Agent is also great. So yeah, I cut Artful Takedown. It didn't have Surveil. It was kind of slow. Like, I think if I really wanted to keep the removal count high, I would just add another Murder, maybe another Deadly Visit. Deadly Visit is kind of slow. The Surveil is nice, though. I took it out against Mono Red, but I think it does definitely belong in the deck. So this is where I would have the deck. Now, this is I'll probably continue playing this deck for the end boss matches for the foreseeable future. And yeah, that's about it. So check out the description if you want the text version of all of these decks. And congratulations once again to our top 4. Of course, if you like our content, thank you so much for watching. That's a great way to support us, especially hitting that like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, that's another great way to support us. If you want to go above and beyond and support Youth Magic here on Oahu and support the creation of Standard Pauper content for everyone around the world to enjoy, please consider becoming a Patreon subscriber. You choose how much you would like to donate each month, and each month that amount goes to support the tournaments that we run. We are growing. We are starting to run more monthly tournaments. We are hoping to run 2 scholarship tournaments this school year, and all of that is made possible thanks to our Patreon subscribers. So please check out our Patreon page if you would like to support us. All right. Well, thanks for stopping in. We hope you enjoyed our deck lists, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.